Here's an Atari game, a Super Nintendo game, an N64 game, a Virtual Boy game, and here's a Magnavox Odyssey 2 game. Quest for the Rings. Well, to be fair, it's the box encasing the game that's enormous. This is what an actual Magnavox Odyssey 2 game looks like, and it's pretty normal. So why the size difference? Most Magnavox Odyssey games are exactly what you'd imagine. Generic black squares, except for the strange handle planted on top. The original Magnavox Odyssey, however, had games that were a combination of board games and video games, due to the, graphical limitations.
For example, to play Odyssey Tennis, you insert game card number 3 into the master unit. This activates 3 lights, 2 representing the players and 1 representing the ball. Press the special tennis game overlay into position on the television screen, and you're ready to begin an exciting, fast-paced tennis game.
Now, as a joke, or maybe as a throwback, that same format would make a return for the Magnavox Odyssey 2. Quest for the Rings is actually one of only 3 of these throwback games, dubbed the Master Strategy Series. Before digging too deep into the game, we gotta quickly cover the console this thing goes to. Meet the Odyssey 2. If you're colorblind and squint hard enough, you'd probably confuse it for an Atari 2600. After all, they have almost the same exact shape, take games from the top, and the controllers are almost identical. However, this wire situation is way worse than the Ataris. So, what's the thing that sets this console apart? Yeah, dumb question.
What's in the box?
Now that we've covered all that, we can actually start breaking apart this monstrosity. Immediately, you're greeted with some artwork, which is actually the same from the cover. Is that a spider shooting a laser beam at a wizard? Anyways, inside you'll find a gold labeled cartridge, which I suppose makes you feel slightly more luxurious than those other generic cartridges, but nothing comes close to the gold NES games. Moving over to the opposite side, you'll remove a gold stamped cover to find a plethora of circles and squares. But
I'm not done yet!
Lifting up the plastic mold reveals even more items. First, a golden manual. We'll come back to that. Next, a thin piece of plastic. We'll come back to that. Lastly, we come to the real reason this box is so enormous. A game board, if I can fit into the frame. Nope. No. There we go. Look at all this stuff, and all this just for a video game. Let's consult this fancy manual. This game is supposed to be a 3-player game. 2 people take control of characters in the game, while the 3rd player is the Ring Master, basically the Dungeon Master from D&D. The Ring Master is the one that sets up the game. In fact, they have their own items called possession tokens, which allows them to just take the controller from you anytime during gameplay. So, all those circles and pieces we saw earlier are essentially levels and enemies then. And rings, and yourself, and possession tokens, and time itself. Oh man. To beat this game, you and the other player have to collect 10 ring coins. These ring coins are hidden underneath different types of dungeon variations. In order to win though, the players must collect them before a certain amount of turns happen, marked by the hourglass piece. Out of all the possible levels, there's generic dungeons, the standard, enough said. The infernos, based on the art you'd think you've just landed on the planet Venus. Basically, it's the dungeons but touching the walls kills you. Shifting halls, the dungeons but the walls move from left to right. And yes, you can get stuck in them. Crystal caverns. The dungeons, but the walls are invisible unless touching them. Yet the rings and levels can be combined with yet another item. Every level will spawn with an assortment of bathroom-sign enemies, or as the manual says, orcs. I'll just take their word for it. But there are additional enemies you can add. Dragons. You won't win. Spiders. You won't win. Cthulhu monsters. Yeah, you still won't win. So, you create your levels, mix them up, and pick up a controller. For the sake of visual interest, I'm actually going to replace that dumb wheel coin with a red sorry piece. And I'm going to place myself at one of the ports. So, plug it in, turn it on, and wait, which button do I press? Oh, that's right, I forgot that thin piece of plastic from earlier. Slide that thing over the keyboard, and now you know what the buttons do. Actually not, hitting the big start button just launches you into a randomly generated level. What we want is Ring Master Control. Now that's a good soundtrack. Here is the character selection screen. When the name of a character you want appears, you press the button on your controller. But what choices are there? The warrior, he's a man with a sword. The wizard, he's the warrior but way worse considering your weapon doesn't actually kill the enemies but just gives them a seizure. The phantom, no weapon, but he can't hide in your walls. The changeling, no weapon, but he can go invisible. The manual says you won't be detected by enemies. Right. Your best bet for beating this game is both of you selecting the warrior. After all, they are the only one that can actually kill enemies. Sort of. So let's start off with that first dungeon. We open it up, revealing no ring, a monster's coin, and a dungeons piece. All that's left to do now is input that into the keyboard. See that strange shape at the bottom? Yeah, that's the exit symbol. You need to touch it to escape this room, except there's an unkillable spider on top of it. Yeah, I'm not beating this one. Luckily, according to the manual, you can skip a dungeon you die in. Eventually, you'll hit your first ring. Here, the ring counts as the exit, so as long as you touch it, you'll grab it and be freed. All good things must come to an end though, and eventually you'll find yourself hitting that final ring. Victory. And where's my reward? Well, you're seeing it. So, how's the game? It's aight.